Welcome to Nightmare365. This is the center of weirdness for the entire planet. There's tons of unsolved mysteries out there. Witches still exist. What about monsters? Do you believe in ghosts? Bigfoot is not out there. Bigfoot is definitely out there. UFOs are real. UFOs might be real. Do you believe in conspiracies? I consider myself a conspiracy theorist. I want to believe in all these case files. Trust no one. The government lies to you. We're just two brothers exploring the unexplained, mysterious, and spookiness that lives among us. Welcome to the center of weirdness known as Nightmare365 Radio. What is up, everybody? My name is Matt.
I'm Greg.
And today we have a good topic, I would say. It's starting our HomeTown Haunt series.
Ooh, boy.
So we have the serial killer series, and now we're introducing a new series, the HomeTown Haunt series, which I feel like it's going to be more than just haunts.
What do you feel like it's going to be? Like legends, myths, stories?
Yeah, stuff like that. So that's what I would say this new series encompasses, all that. Not just, like ghost sightings and things like that, but majority of it is probably just going to be ghost sightings, but just weird stories from each state.
We have a lot, though, in New Jersey.
We do.
I mean...
Well, we grew up here, and we know pretty much all the legends, myths, everything like that is associated with New Jersey. So
Sure.
It's a good thing to, incorporate in the show. Maybe we will do New Jersey, but today we're going to be doing California. But before we get started, I just want to say subscribe to us on our YouTube channel and hit the bell for notifications where you can watch all of our podcasts, HomeTown Haunt series, Serial Killer series, Weekday Weirds, and anything else that is going on here in the nightmare realm. And I wanted to say also, too, check out our Patreon page. We're updating that constantly, and most of the content that we do put out there on YouTube and our podcast and our shows is going to be in advance for our Patreon members. So that was something that we're working on, we've been talking about. And also visit our shop at Nightmare365.com, where that's where you can find all the information if you need any information on us, from our contact information or phone number. If you have any stories from your hometown or your home state, send us through. It's all found at Nightmare365.com. And lastly, I wanted to talk about, I'm going to bring this up on the screen, Creature Feature Weekend. It's coming up at the end of the month, August 30th through September 1st. It's in the historic Gettysburg, Pennsylvania at the Wyndham Hotel. And Creature Feature Weekend features independent film festival, celebrity guests. They have some good celebrities, too, if you look at the whole ticket on there. Question and answer sessions, vendors, food trucks, and a whole lot more. This is the first time that this event is actually taking place. I'm kind of upset I'll be working and won't be able to go down there because, A, I do love Gettysburg.
Yeah.
And this just seems right up my alley. Last time I was in Gettysburg, I saw the flyer for this, and I had to reach out to the guy that's actually putting this together, and he sent me a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I like the graphics on this.
Yeah, the graphics are definitely sweet. It's like one of those old 70s, 80s horror movies feel for it. So we're going to link that up in the show notes, and if you're around Gettysburg at the end of the month in August 30th through September 1st, Labor Day weekend, so if you're not down at the beach like we might be, or working like we are, definitely check out this, because if there was a way I can get down there, I would have. But, yeah, I'm going to link that up in the show notes for everybody to see. And today, dude, we're opening up the Eerie Vault for our first of the HomeTown Haunt series. We're going to be talking about, this is also Case File 56. 56 episodes, dude.
That's a lot of episodes
that we have done. And today we're talking about the Glen Tavern Inn and the Winchester Mystery House.
Winchester Mystery House. I like that house.
Do you?
Yeah.
We never been. We both never been to any of these places.
No.
So we could just, throw that out there. They are places that I think you talked about in, upcoming trips that you might do to check out the Winchester Mystery House.
Yeah, the Winchester Mystery House is in San Jose, California.
Yeah.
Which is only like 30 miles, 30 minutes south of San Francisco. So it's not that far from if you're ever in San Francisco.
True. And we're going to talk about first the Glen Tavern Inn. This inn dates back into 1911, so it does have some history. It's about over 100 years old now, right?
Yeah, over 100 years old, 108.
Yeah, this is in Santa Paula, California, and it's on the National Register of Historic Places that was put in 1984. And just from some of the videos, I watched a lot of ghost hunters, or not ghost hunters, but like
Ghost Adventures.
yeah, Ghost Adventures were here. There's been a lot of other paranormal teams that went through this place, and I wanted to get a feel for it. Like, all right, what is this place really haunted? And some of those shows, we were always on the fence with some of them, but yeah, they were on Ghost Adventures in 2013. And then the Ventura Paranormal Society also held its annual conference there. And they actually had a video up there as well. There's a bunch of other different paranormal groups that went through the place, independent paranormals, bigger groups. And they had some interesting stories and finds.
Yeah.
But it just, I guess, depends on what you really believe in. But let's give you a little background and a history of this place, where it's located in California. So it is located in Santa Paula, and it dates back, like we said, to 1911. And it was right around the time, I guess there was a crisis that happened in the town. There was the earthquake and stuff, so it was affected. But then there was like a boom.
Yep.
It became like the headquarters of the Union Oil.
Yeah, oil boom.
And it kind of started a new resurgence of the town. And then Hollywood started, making its way into the town as well, doing some filming. And that's where kind of, started to take off, with different films. And then wealthy people visiting the, town. It was right by the train station, this inn, slash hotel.
I like the history of it just because, like, if you read, like, some of the history, like, during Prohibition, it was used as a speakeasy.
Yeah.
A brothel, like, gambling parlors and everything like that. So I think that has, like, some cool, like, if you think about, like, the speakeasy aspect of it, you think about, there has to be, like, tunnels or, like, secret rooms or secret compartments, like, built into the house. So,
well, yeah, that's most legends and stories date from this time period.
Yep.
When it was a speakeasy, a brothel, people were gambling, doing, some shady shit that was going on here. And so most of the stories I feel like centered around this and stuff that I found, which is it haunted or is it not haunted?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, like, after this time period, like, it was almost like in a defunct, like, state of disrepair.
Yeah.
Like, it was left just as it was, and, like, just fell, like, no one took care of the house, no one, kept up to the house. And
yeah, in the 1930s too, like, that's when really Hollywood discovered, this part, and, they were kind of just going out there. Some of the notables that were there, John Wayne, Houdini, and, among other people that were out in this house. And it's kind of cool because Houdini has connections to both this and then the Winchester Mystery House.
Yes, he does.
And he was a gentleman that was really into debunking a lot of, like, what we talk about today. Like, we're debunking, certain paranormal shows, certain ghost hunters, mostly high production value shows that, just have some garbage, even though it is on TV and people fall in love with it. But
that's why people fall in love with that kind of shit, though.
Well, yeah, it was on TV.
Yeah, it's on TV.
It's kind of cool to know that he went to some of these places and had his own experiences and really couldn't debunk either place. So that was kind of cool reading about it. And then, just the tavern itself. Looking at it and doing some of the research on this place, and it was brought to our attention by our good friends from Jack-O-Lantern Press, both Michael and Tom Pigarella. So I'm sure you heard us talk about them before, but on the show, this is something that they wanted us to do. They both visited, these sites, and they said, some good stories happened here.
Sure. I mean, one of the mottos of the house is where the past comes to life.
Yeah. So. And it's fitting for this story, because they said, like, the past really does come to life in some of these, rooms, and some of the 307 is a big room.
Yeah, that's one of the most famous rooms, room 307.
Yeah, and of all the experiences and of all the stuff that I've read about, like, 307 supposedly
is the hot spot.
Yeah, is definitely the hot spot. And also there was somebody that was killed there and decapitated.
Mm-hmm.
And it was somebody that was, during, like, the brothel time, and supposedly it's a prostitute.
Yeah, I could see that.
But then a lot of the investigations when I was looking at it, because I was like, all right, I need a good feel for this, place because I've never been there.
Sure.
So I was like, how can I get a good feel? And watching these shows, you kind of pick apart each one and say like, all right, they all kind of had the same story. I'm sure they heard the same legends when they were there.
Yeah, I'm sure the curator or whoever takes care of the property.
Yeah, I'm sure people write in the books because a lot of old hotels have the books where people sign in and talk about like ghost stories.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool just to hear them talk about 307. They did a bunch of investigations there. And that one was cool. They had some good, I guess you would say, EVPs where you would hear like the voices on the electronic, voice recorders. So that was kind of cool to see. And I feel like this one, just from reading about it, reading the history, and watching these shows, I really think this one could be haunted.
Why do you feel that, though? As opposed to, like, any other, like, houses or old time, like, wherever else they go.
I don't know. Just seeing it, it almost felt like, to me anyway, like, when you walk into some really old place,
sure,
and you kind of just feel like, all right, there's so much history here. When people walk in, like ghost hunters, when they walk in the room, oh my God, this is really heavy.
Yeah.
Like I feel something, like right away, everybody feels something.
Sure.
It gives me that feeling just watching it. And when people just walked around on the outside, it has that hometown, like we did, hometown series haunts. It has that hometown feel.
It does. Yeah.
And then when you walk in it's just like so historic.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems like one of those ordinary places that you don't normally think of. And like the Winchester house, everybody thinks about that. And like everybody has their own stories and notions already coming into the place. Where this one, I don't think you have that.
Well, it's not as well known.
No, it's not. I didn't really know about this.
Worldwide. Like the Winchester Mystery House is much more well known.
It is. And yeah, this one I had no clue like about until our friends Tom and Mike, told us about it. And that was where, when I started looking it up and watching the videos, I don't know. I just have that sense, like, I hate saying that because, a lot of the ghost hunters say that when they walk into the room.
Sure.
And I saw a bunch of those videos too with the Winchester Mystery House. But this one, I felt the same way. I felt like just the aura. The best way I could describe it is like going to the Hawthorne Hotel.
Okay.
And like that old time feel, like you just have that old time feel from like the 20s, 30s.
Yeah.
And you just have that feel. So not necessarily like, oh my God, I'm going into a room and saying like, this is so heavy and it's, something that I can't explain. This is going into like a place and be like, wow, just the stories that probably happened here.
Sure.
Because it was an inn, people did go there and stay the night, so there's tons of stories where, as the Winchester Mystery House is totally different. That's someone's house.
Yeah, that was somebody's house.
This is like an inn. So how many people actually pass through this house? How many stories do they have themselves? Like John Wayne, Houdini, a bunch of other celebrities that came here that filmed in the, the town that we don't even hear about, that don't make the list. And then all of a sudden that when you go there, you kind of, it's almost like when I go to like history places, and there was like a battle, like Gettysburg.
Sure.
And sometimes you don't even realize it because it's just so modern.
Yeah.
But back then, if you like think about it, and you're like, wow, I'm walking in the footsteps of like where people were killing each other or where people were living like back then. And like there was stuff going on and it was a totally different world. That's kind of the way I feel about the Glen Tavern Inn.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, that's really it. There's not too much more like with the stories.
No, I mean, there really isn't, besides like the gambling, the speakeasy, like the shootouts, like from like unruly gamblers and stuff like that.
And that's what I love. I love stories like that because that one, it's actually documented and you could see.
Yeah.
There's only so much you could figure out and know about it, but it's still something that.
Yeah, I think it's a cool place. I think existed. It's like an old world feel to it. Like if you look at the pictures of it, it almost. I don't know.
Smaller version of The Shining.
Yeah, pretty much, almost.
Yeah, it has that feel. It almost feels like one of our uncle's house, like with some of the sidings.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
Like that old 70s look, like the wood and like the stucco and all that stuff. So
yeah, it definitely does.
So, yeah, this one was really cool. I enjoyed learning about the Glen Tavern Inn, and it was just another thing, in our, spot of doing this. It's just a new thing that I never knew existed.
Yeah,
I'm kind of glad I did, because if I'm out there and I'm ever in that area of California, in the southern area, I'll definitely check this place out.
Yeah, and like you could find like probably a lot of interesting houses, interesting sites on the U.S. National Registry of Historical Places.
Oh, you can
just think about like all the places that were listed out, and if you go look back at that history, of like each one of those properties.
Well, yeah, even some of the places that are around here are on that registry, you know, and that's what I love about it, because there's so much history that goes into this that really makes you say, this is a cool place. I definitely should check it out. So that's the Glen Tavern Inn. If you have been there and have stories, definitely share with us. Like I said, all of our stuff's on our website if you don't already know. And the next house,
Winchester Mystery
This one's
House.
fun. This is also in California, so it fits in with this theme today of California.
Yeah,
that's where our the hometown haunts is. And I don't even know where to start with this one.
I mean,
because it has a really cool history.
It does.
And, the Weekday Weird that's coming out on Wednesday also kind of ties into this with the spiritualism aspect of it. I guess I didn't know too much about the history, like really in depth. I know, like, you always hear stories about this place. All right, it was under construction, and it's haunted. You hear things like that, but you don't really know too much of the history unless you really dive into it. And
yeah, I mean, the history, goes back to the personal residence of Sarah Winchester.
Right.
She was the widow of William Winchester, the Winchester rifle.
Right. If everybody doesn't know, like during this time period, and you have to realize this started construction in 1884.
Yeah.
And right after the Civil War, spiritualism became a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know too much about spiritualism either. And it's really just like a religious movement based on the belief that spirits of the dead do exist.
There's more than 8 million followers at one point.
Wait, spiritualism?
Yeah.
It is crazy. And we're going to talk about the Fox sisters on the upcoming Weekday Weird about this, because they kind of had the whole start and movement of spiritualism. And if you think of three sisters from New York starting this movement,
Hocus Pocus,
and what they did, it does seem like that. And it's just crazy, their story in itself. So make sure to check out that Weekday Weird. But it does have ties. Like Sarah Winchester did believe in that same kind of concept. One, because she lived on the East Coast right by us in Connecticut. And then when her husband died, he was, the Winchester rifle. Everybody thinks about that, like the company. She did inherit 50% of the company.
Yeah, she did.
And it was like
$20 million back then. I think today's value is like $550 million.
Yeah.
$530 million.
And that was a last year.
Yeah.
So I'm sure with inflation it is around $550 million, that she inherited. So imagine that in like the 80s, when her husband did die of tuberculosis.
Yeah,
they did have a child together, which also as an infant their child died. And that has to be crazy too. Like, so you just had your newborn die, and then your husband dies, with all in a span of a couple years. And then all of a sudden you're just like, all right, am I cursed? And a lot of people felt that way. And I think that's where spiritualism like kind of grew at one point.
Yeah.
Because, people were trying to find answers, with loved ones going away. Like I always come back to the Civil War and, going to Gettysburg and just knowing how many people died, during the war, and people were looking for answers. Like, can we contact them? Like, I wanted to say goodbye. I never had that chance. That's kind of like where it tied in. And she believed in that.
She did.
And then she went to a bunch of different mediums, a bunch of different people, and they told her, like, you're cursed. Like because of the Winchester rifles, like there's upset spirits.
I can see that. Yeah.
We're like, we were killed by the Winchester rifle. So now we're gonna come get you. Like you're the big company, you're the big person now in charge. So she then travels across the country to California, in San Jose. Yeah. Buys, like a little.
It was a farmhouse, basically.
Yeah, I think it was
1884. It was a
small two-story farmhouse.
Correct.
And there is part of that farmhouse, or it's part of that, what was on that property at the time, that still exists in the Winchester house itself.
Yeah, it does.
Which that's kind of cool. So when she travels across country to kind of get away from it all, and then builds the house. But in doing so, in 1884, they said, which this is a weird thing to say, but, if you keep doing construction on this house and never stop, you'll live. But if you stop and cease, construction on this house, something is going to happen to you.
Yeah, she started construction. She hired contractors day and night to work on the house, and she didn't use an architect. She just went off of like her
thoughts.
Yeah, thoughts, intuitions of what she like wanted.
And supposedly, here's a big contradictory which I found in the story. Like, she wanted to build the house and keep going around, like building to confuse the spirits so they couldn't get her, right? But at the same time, supposedly she would have seances at like 2 o'clock in the morning, midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning. So why are you trying to reach out to these spirits, but then also you're afraid of the spirits?
Yeah.
So you're trying to build the house and, not have them catch you, but at the same time trying to contact them. Almost like I see them, like doing the Ouija board and then trying to say like, oh, what should I do now? And what one of the tales was, when she does these seances, she would ask for, ideas. So then there's a ghost or somebody telling her like, well, you can confuse the ghost by building this staircase that goes up to nowhere. Yeah,
basically there's stairs and rooms and like hallways that just lead to like nothing.
Right. And from the construction, which it, originated in 1886 till her death in 1922.
Yep.
She was in her 80s when she died. And then there's 24,000 square feet, 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, 160 rooms, 52 skylights, 47 stairways and fireplaces.
That's crazy.
17 chimneys, 6 kitchens. And it's just crazy. It's crazy to think about. Imagine spending, in today's money, $71 million to construct a house nonstop.
I mean, people do that.
I know, and I just couldn't fathom that money. And she was also...
Well, she was making $1,000 a day.
A day, yeah.
Back then, which is equal to, I think, $25,000 or $26,000 a day now.
That's crazy.
Just think about that. If you made $26,000 a day...
Ooh, I'd probably do a little bit more at Nightmare. And I would have a whole production team making videos for us.
Would you have a house like this?
No. I wouldn't. That's just too big for me. I don't. Yeah. I'm fine with what I have now, too. I mean, of course, I would want something bigger and a better studio.
Yeah.
But other than that, I wouldn't really care how big the house is, because then how many times are you going to go into these different...
She probably didn't.
Are you going to go into all 160 rooms?
No, because I remember when the ghost hunters went there and did the investigation, like they would go into these rooms and like it would just stop.
Yeah.
Or like the ballrooms and just it would be like nothing.
Right. Yeah, and she was obsessed with the number 13 too, where that links up in spiritualism and at all. And, like the number 13 is always one of these things that throughout history...
Unlucky numbers.
Yeah, we should definitely do an episode on whether it's just
I like
we
the number 13, though. I don't mind it.
So do I. It's like if you flip Halloween on the 31st, it's the 13th.
Apollo 13.
Right. So all these things kind of connect. Yes, she had 13 bedrooms, 13 bathrooms, and a lot of different... They were saying, I watched the documentary on it, and a lot of different panels, windows... had 13, kind of symbolized all over the house.
Sure.
So you could see that, and chandeliers. There's one famous window pane that had, some people like, oh, it's orbs of the spirits. Some people it's like, it's diamonds. It's just circles.
Yeah.
But it's 13 in that window pane. So that's kind of cool just from itself. And you can visit this place. I'm going to link up their WinchesterMysteryHouse.com. You can plan a visit, visit. There's stories, there's timelines. There's also the Winchester movie.
Mm-hmm.
I heard it was pretty good. I didn't see it. It's a horror movie.
Yeah.
And I hate when they say, oh, it's based on a true story. But then
not.
It's never...
It's just like probably one, yeah.
Yeah, there's like one part of it that's based. So I might check out that movie on Amazon or Netflix, wherever it is.
Yeah.
And check it out. But this one definitely has so much more you could talk about. With this place,
like especially like the ghosts, like people would hear stuff,
right?
And all the stories that come along with it. But I think most of them are probably like, I don't know, like if you think about it, construction was going on nonstop.
Well, here's another thing that I found, and from her biographer, that said, and even they talked about it at the actual house, because it did, something like a private group now runs it, and
Sure.
they obviously run it as, you know, a museum, and they do ghost tours and all that kind of stuff. They decorate for Halloween. But when I was doing some of the information and the background checks on this, the biographer did say like there was periods of time where the building did cease.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I don't know, is that just a myth that gets pushed down through like, ooh, construction never stopped. It was around the clock.
Yeah, because it was,
like,
it was supposedly the world's longest house renovation.
Yeah.
And that's what it said. But
yeah, it does claim that. And it does claim that on the actual, you know, website themselves. Yeah. But they do say, you know, they do mention that, you know, and they did find, because there was also something that was found recently too. There was an old photograph of her on the carriage. And when they're, you know, because supposedly there was never any photographs allowed to be taken of her. But you do see a cool photograph of her that is when there. But then also the museum people that curated said they recently found another photograph of her on the property, which is kind of cool. And, you know, it has that old-timey photograph feel to it, and it's a little creepy.
It is a little creepy.
Yeah, you just see her, and she's just, like, kind of staring off into the distance. She did also have, like, illness, like arthritis in her legs, and you know, a lot of people say, like, the stairs are so, like, tiny. There's not, like, a big gap in between stairs. You know, it's because she needed to move around. And one of the cool parts where I saw where there was an investigation in her room, in her bedroom.
Yeah, I did see that.
And, you know, they did hear noises. A lot of people from the videos that I saw was the spirit boxes, you know, and they were doing different, you know, questions and answer sessions. And they did come up with a lot of different stuff that were in there. So it was kind of cool to see that.
Well, I mean, what do you think? Like, do you think this is like really haunted? Do you think this is actually haunted, like by her, or like the people that were killed by like the rifles? Or
it's definitely a cool story, but like I said, like this one was just owned by a person. Like, granted, there was a lot of people working there.
Yeah, I mean, the house itself is cool, and the architecture and everything like that, like, is interesting to me, and all the different rooms and leading to nowhere and stuff like that. But it doesn't have like that same like haunted house feel.
It doesn't. Like that's what I was saying about like the Glen Tavern Inn felt more like you have so many more stories. Even if you didn't hear about those stories, you had so many more stories in that place.
Yeah.
You know, and
I mean, granted, yeah, people do hear some stuff and like, you know, see some stuff, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, like the only thing that I saw over and over again from like all these different ghost hunters was I think it was on the 3rd floor.
Okay.
Or it's like an attic now where they saw orbs. There's bats up there, but that was really it. You know, like the other stuff, it was more like they got EVPs, you know, like the voice recordings of just disembodied voices.
But I wonder if you do that in like any house though, right?
I'm sure you can. I mean, when people go to this place, right, it's well known.
Yeah.
You already have the stories. Like, I knew when you hear about the Winchester Mystery House, you hear like, all right, like I said in the beginning, the construction never stopped.
Yeah, and I think
like, people, it's haunted.
Yeah, people get freaked out, I think, or like,
of course,
disoriented because of like some of the rooms do lead to nowhere, some of the stairs do lead to nowhere. So I think that kind of like is like a funhouse effect that freaks you out. I think
it does. Whereas like like there's stories there because there's workers. You know, Sarah lived there. I'm sure her family was there. There was people that visited. Like we said, Houdini did visit that place. From the time, and. So it's one of those things. Even like I heard a story, which I don't know how true it is, but Teddy Roosevelt, he went there and like for the time being, which this was another cool aspect of the house. It was like, I forget how many stories it was.
Like 7 stories.
Yeah, it was much higher than the earthquake happened.
Correct.
And like during the earthquake, there was a lot more renovations that were going on. It just went back down to like kind of like a normal level, like 3-4 stories now. And then like Teddy Roosevelt came to like the front door and they're like, no, we don't use the front door. You have to go to like the servant's door. And he's like, forget this, I'm leaving. So I heard that story. I don't know how true that is. You know, if that was just another, you know, myth that's been passed down through history itself. But I don't know. I didn't have the same feel or when I was watching it. I don't know. Maybe if I visited both sites, I might have a different opinion.
Maybe.
But just from watching the videos and watching the ghost hunters, I didn't have the same feel. like I would like to go visit the house and see if I did feel anything.
Yeah, I think
or
it would be
see
definitely
anything.
a cool place to visit.
Yeah, but I think the Glen Tavern Inn I would say is more haunted.
Yes.
And it just has that vibe to it
And
more
that
so
look,
than like this one is just like cool that you see in a movie.
Sure.
You see, like during Halloween, and it's like, dude, that's the place. But like the place that is really haunted or something's going on, that would be more for me, the Glen Tavern Inn. I don't know. Is there anything else you really want to add about these stories and this, whole hometown haunts?
No, I like it though.
I do like the hometown haunts, man. I think if we had some more information about like any of these places, and I can't wait to see, like, I guess we'll have to go state by state.
Yeah, you definitely have to.
And then maybe do Jersey last.
Yeah, we'll do Jersey last.
Save that for last. Because we'll always be like, yo,
dude, run!
That's when we're at the Glen Tavern Inn. We're going to be like, dude, run.
Nah.
Because it's really haunted.
Nah.
Yeah, so my check mark for me is definitely the Glen Tavern is a little bit more haunted inside, I think. But I guess I'll have to visit. So that's pretty much it. But thanks for tuning in to this week's Case File 56, the Hometown Haunts series. Make sure to visit Nightmare365.com for all of our contact information, past shows. Visit our site for our shop if you want a t-shirt to help support us in that way. And make sure to support us on Patreon because that's another way to do it for us. And subscribe to us on our YouTube channel and hit the bell for notifications. And lastly, check out our show notes because we're going to be linking Creature Feature Weekend in there coming up at the end of the month. And make sure to keep up with us. So until next time,
stay spooky.